distinguished security chiefs. For beneath every constitution, beneath every election, beneath every institution, beneath every oath of office lies a simple expectation. The expectation of protection. The expectation that the citizen should not stand alone before danger. The expectation that there exists an organized national will dedicated to the defense of life, the defense of liberty, and the defense of public safety. The expectation that when threats emerge, the Republic emerges also. Because before a nation can educate its children, it must first protect them. Before it can inspire hope, it must protect hope. Before it can unlock opportunity, it must protect opportunity. Before it can ask citizens to believe in the future, it must first make that future reachable. And that is why this conversation is no longer merely about insecurity. It is about protection. The meaning of protection. The expectation of protection. The promise of protection. And perhaps the deepest anxiety now confronting many Nigerians is not simply that existential danger exists. Such danger has always existed. No nation has ever completely eliminated danger. And no society has ever completely eliminated risk. That is not the standard by which serious nations are judged. However, the deeper question is whether citizens believe that the institutions established to protect them are keeping pace with the threats confronting them. Because a republic is ultimately judged not merely by the promises it makes, but by the protection it delivers. And perhaps that is why so many Nigerians feel unsettled and terrorized. Not simply because attacks occur, but because every attack forces citizens to revisit a difficult question. Where was the promise? Where was the protection? Where was the visible reassurance that the full weight of the Republic stood between ordinary people and extraordinary danger? For what is citizenship if not the expectation that one belongs to a political community that will not abandon its obligations when terrorism-induced danger appears? What is statehood if citizens increasingly feel compelled to calculate their own risks, to organize their own security, and navigate their own fears? What is the meaning of belonging to a nation if vulnerability increasingly feels personal while protection increasingly feels completely absent? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are national questions. And national questions deserve national answers. Because somewhere between Chibok and Oyo, between Leah Sharibu and Deborah Samuel, between Owo and Plateau, between Benue and countless forgotten communities, many Nigerians have begun quietly asking themselves, can we still trust the protection promise? The promise that citizenship carries protection. The promise that danger will be confronted at any and at all cost. The promise that certain lines remain non-negotiable. The promise that there are still red lines a nation refuses to permit to be crossed. Because there are certain lines a nation does not permit to be crossed without consequence. The abduction of children should be one of them. The murder of teachers should be one of them.
Abba!
The slaughter of worshippers should be one of them. The destruction of communities should definitely be one of them. The terrorizing of citizens should be one of them. And above all, daring to attack military formations and fortifications should be taboo. Daring to even think about abducting military generals or physically taking servicemen and women should never, ever be contemplated, let alone actualized. For once a nation begins appearing uncertain about its red lines, those who threaten the peace of that nation begin testing how far they will go. History teaches a difficult lesson. Every line left undefended eventually invites another challenge. Every warning left unanswered eventually invites another warning. Every consequence that fails to materialize eventually encourages another transgression. And that is why this special edition is not a cry of anger. It is a cry of urgency. Because the relationship between the Nigerian citizen and the promise of protection made by the Nigerian Republic is now under examination. Not by foreign observers, not by commentators, but by ordinary Nigerians themselves. Parents, teachers, students, farmers, traders, worshippers, communities, and citizens. Everyday people who simply want to live out their lives without fear. And perhaps no republic can afford to ignore such a question indefinitely. For what is a republic if not a covenant between a people and the institutions established to protect them? What is citizenship if not the expectation that one belongs to a political community that will not abandon its obligations when insecurity of Jurassic proportions appears? What is the meaning of statehood if citizens increasingly feel compelled to provide for their own security, calculate their own risks, and navigate their own fears all by themselves? Because at its heart, this conversation is no longer merely about insecurity. It is, again, about protection. The meaning of protection. The expectation of protection. The promise of protection. And perhaps the deepest anxiety now confronting many Nigerians is not simply that terrorism exists. The deeper anxiety is whether the institutions created to stand between citizens and terrorism are keeping pace with the threats confronting the nation. For a republic is ultimately judged not by the promises it makes, but by the protection it delivers. A nation should never be carrying on like this. Again, we will drop it here and return next week to unveil the challenge we are faced with as a nation in chapter 4 of this series, and ultimately harp on the final warning, beyond warnings, and the path forward for Nigeria in this concluding Security Digest series in chapter 5. And as we leave you today, we enjoin everyone to remain ever vigilant, to remain blessed, and to stay tuned in and stay safe at all costs. This has been the Mailman, signing off for the people. Goodbye now.